Hello, Elena. Now, we were talking a lot about Syria earlier, the Arab League finally taking a stand. Yesterday, you mentioned how there was an article that was saying that the Arab League couldn't really do much to change the situation, but now you've got an article saying the exact opposite.
Exactly. This is in here, in today's Guardian. Now, their foreign editor, Simon Tisdall, says actually the Arab League could be much more effective than lots of people have been saying, especially Turkey. Now, Turkey, of course, has already made some unilateral sanctions towards Syria and is threatening to cut off their electricity supply. But he thinks Turkey could play much more than just an economic role. He says that Turkey has been ahead of the Arab street opinion on just about every country in the Arab Spring, while all the other governments have been trailing behind. So they're setting themselves up as a leader, and they could also provide a perfect example on how, as he says, Assad's sectarian politics of fear are a thing of the past. In Turkey, different ethnic and religious groups live quite happily side by side, Tisdall says, and as a result, that could provide a perfect example for the Syrian opponents of the regime to find out how they could build a new country after the fall of Assad.
Now, Barack Obama, the US president, he's on a visit down under. How's the press there? What are they making of his visit over there?
Well, they absolutely love him, Claire. If we have a look on the front page of the Sydney Morning Herald, you've got two schoolgirls there giving Obama a huge hug as they bumped into him on a visit to their school yesterday. And you would think their journalists wanted to give him a big hug as well. The editorial absolutely raves about him. They say that the idea of installing US Marines in the north of Australia shows that Australia is important to Americans, and it will be in the long term as well. If we have a look at their cartoon, it kind of mocks gently Obama's charms. They've got him presenting a huge bunch of flowers to Julia Gillard and saying, "I hope you don't mind if I park my car in your driveway." The car, of course, being a great big tank. There is one article inside that paper, though, which is a little bit more critical. One of the Sydney Morning Herald's journalists says that Australia shouldn't be aligning itself with what he calls America's aggressive policy towards China, because that's what those tanks being stationed in northern Australia are really aimed towards, he said. He thinks Australia is an Asian country, at least geographically, and it should be aligning itself much more with China's interests and much less with the US.
And the Aussie tabloid, the Herald Sun, says that it's pretty clear that Barack Obama and Prime Minister Julia Gillard are making friends.
Yes, it's given them a good opportunity for some quite awful headline writing. They've gone for Ozbama as a headline, the visit of the PM's best mate. And on the inside, they've got a big double page showing pictures of the Prime Minister and the President with their hands on each other's backs, looking very intimate at yesterday's press conference. They say that Julia Gillard looked like she'd won a date with George Clooney when she was alongside Obama. And apparently he also learnt some Australian words from her today. He gave a speech, saying that the relationship between the US and Australia was crackerjack and in top nick. I think that means it's good, doesn't it, Claire?
It sounds pretty positive, yes. Now, moving on to something completely different. The neo-Nazi group discovered earlier this week in Germany. The press is still reeling in shock from that.
Yeah, Der Spiegel is asking in an article there if German society is blind to this threat. They say this caused a big series of national soul-searching, and lots of people saying extreme right parties should be banned. They say banning is not the answer. Politicians need to start working out why those kind of extreme right ideologies are still attracting people in Germany.
And you're going to round off with this provocative new ad by Benetton.
Yes, have a look at this ad campaign which the Benetton have now released. It's on the Huffington Post there. It shows Nicolas Sarkozy and Angela Merkel snogging Barack Obama and Hugo Chavez and the Pope with a Muslim imam. Now, that image has caused quite a lot of controversy. It's from a campaign called Unhate, but some people do hate it. The Sunday Times, the New York Times and the Guardian have all refused to publish those images, and the Pope picture has now had to be pulled because it was so controversial. But The Independent says that this kind of campaign might not necessarily save Benetton's plunging sales figures. They say this kind of controversial advertising was interesting when they started it 20 years ago, but now consumers have seen it all.
Not everyone sees that as a peace and love campaign. OK, thank you very much for that look at the international newspapers, Elena Casas. Time now to have another check of our headlines.